Welcome back to Infinite Geek Talk, an ongoing conversation between your hosts, former DC Comics editor and owner of Infinite Heroes in Watertown, Connecticut, Paul Santos, who is joined by Keith Field, co-founder of Gorilla Valley Games and the owner of Rat's Nest Studios. Let's listen in.
Obviously the Batman movie just came out. The Matt Reeves dark and beautiful 14-hour-long Batman movie. And for those who might be curious, I give it a qualified thumbs up on the Kithometer.
Same. I think I liked it. Well, I don't know if I liked it better than you did. I don't remember.
I really have no complaint per se. The only thing that I found challenging was the length of the movie. And ultimately, if I feel compelled to bring up the length of the movie in every discussion I have about it, obviously it's stuck in my craw.
Yeah, you feel it. I would say halfway. A lot of people said the end of the movie, but I definitely felt it in the middle of the movie.
Which we were chatting obviously a little bit to the side, and you had said that you had respected critiques come to you from friends and whatnot, and from outside it, that it kind of lost something in the end for a lot of people. And I haven't seen a lot of that myself. So what did folks have to say?
No, I had a few friends mention that the end. And to be fair, I wasn't able to argue it. It was more of a text message or Facebook hot take. And a lot of it was like, oh, Riddler's motivation. And spoilers, I guess. Minor spoilers.
Let us begin with a proud announcement that we are not going to try to shelter you from spoilers.
Right.
So if you haven't seen the movie yet, what's wrong with you? Get out there and watch it. Go live a life. Don't be afraid of a theater. COVID is a lie. I'm kidding. Kind of. Get out there and see it. It's worth your time. And it definitely deserves to be seen on a big screen.
Right.
And then you may continue, Master Paul.
So they felt the third act, Riddler's plot or plan, didn't make any sense, which I don't think they understood what his plan was.
Right.
And they also had a problem with him convincing a bunch of randos to like shoot people in the middle of Madison Square Garden, which again, it's Gotham.
Yeah.
And that's the least.
That's the most. Dear people who feel that a sacred calf may have been toppled. Every fight with a Gotham villain. The reason I'm not gung-ho for Gotham villains is because it's you fight their gang, and then after a 2-panel squabble, you punch them. That doesn't make much of a movie.
Right.
So creating a situation where in V for Vendetta style, every one of those faceless thugs is, quote-unquote, the Riddler.
I thought it was cool.
That's perfect. That's a way that you make a non-physical character a physical threat. In a video game style battle for the visuals of a movie. I really didn't have an issue with it. I thought it was solid.
I was surprised they didn't get like, why did he blow up the seawall and hurt everyone into Madison Square Garden? I'm like, because he wanted to produce chaos. He thought the Batman was on his side.
And even
for this whole thing.
Obviously we won't have proof of it until the other two movies come out. But if the makers of the film are kind of telegraphing their moves, they're trying to create this microcosm, sort of a sealed continuity of 3 movies. You know they're making 3. It was a stated thing. So doing an accelerated history for this little Gotham is what they struck me as doing. So now you have a situation where spiritually you have a no man's land type scenario of a Gotham sealed from the world where Batman is trying to instill order, most recently touched on in Scott Snyder's Zero Year.
Yeah.
So, while I didn't particularly care for Zero Year, I think
first half is great.
Yeah. Is that ultimately first and second half would make a finer movie than a comic. The pacing of the drama is far more cinematic.
Well, I think too, out of this movie, people are like, oh, I can't believe Riddler kind of sort of outsmarted him, and he's getting beat up a lot, or he can't break into the Iceberg Lounge. It's year 2,
and it's of a new Batman.
And
that's the thing that I keep hitting.
And
this is its own Batman.
And this is from Batman fans, which I find ironic because they always say, oh, we don't want the Bat God.
I was going to say, they all bitch about the quote-unquote Bat God, the idea that he's unflappable and can do anything. Right. Yet give them a Batman who isn't that, and they cry for daddy.
It's so weird. It's so weird. It's the big...
We all want change until you give it to us. Then we will kill you.
And it goes into a bigger conversation about how Superman and Batman are the same.
Sure.
But because Superman has superpowers, they see that as not interesting, but nothing bad ever happens to Batman.
Right.
If you read 80 Years of Batman,
There's no injury he doesn't come back from.
there's no tragedy outside the death of his parents.
Right.
Jason Todd came back. Barbara could walk again. There's nothing really that's ever stuck out.
Correct.
And
that's one of the hardest things, I think, in long-form comic storytelling, right, is the idea that you produce this illusion of change, that you want to create the sense that these characters evolve and that storylines matter moving forward into history. But, it doesn't really help for me to gesticulate with my arm when I'm speaking
I get
in
it.
this conversation. But... yeah, you want that sense of change, but then if anything happens, this just soul-shattering panic and fear and resentment. Now, with a movie, though, I don't feel that those comparisons should be made.
No.
Now, obviously, just moments ago, we were talking about The Ghost and Taskmaster and how they so failed expectations. Those aren't those characters. F you. Because there's nothing spiritually parallel between how they treated those ideas, or I dare say those franchises, and their source material.
I'm not even sure if Taskmaster even has the right power set in Black Widow.
Correct.
Yeah.
Whatever the hell that thing was supposed to be.
Right.
But in this case, where spiritually is there really any break between the characters we see on that screen and the tried and true franchises? As it is, someone or other was complaining that the Riddler uses the Eddie Nashton alias as opposed to the Enigma. And whereas I can see that sticking in people's craws, don't dismiss it as a lack of research. It's a choice. They don't want to channel the more cartoony aspects of the franchise, so they're going with another article from the Riddler's history. Eddie Nashton was his name coming out of the Denny O'Neill's question.
That was Denny O'Neill, right? Yeah. And I get that. I even get the
Make no mistake, when the Enchantress shows up on a Loki show, I expect that it'll be the actual character, the Enchantress, and not Enchantress 2.0
right,
from some obscure comic that no one should have read. That's not the Melter, people. Look away.
There's also, you also get these weird, continuity bits that they do throw fans that everybody also gets like, I didn't like that. Like Catwoman, again, spoilers for this movie. Carmine Falcone is Catwoman's
correct
father.
Yes.
That's only in one comic.
Right.
And it was in Batman or Catwoman 1 in Rome
from
25 years ago.
Yes. And most people forget that was even part of the grand Lobanese tapestry of that work.
And that's in continuity. It's just never spoken of ever again.
Indeed.
And I find that fascinating that they decided to do that. And have you seen these rumors too about they might be doing a Catwoman movie?
Yes, I have.
And then Black Mask will be in it.
Did they? He's going to be the. They've already said that. Yeah.
Because
we were discussing at the store the other day the direction to go in.
Right.
And whereas there are plenty of build up to bring in Two-Face or potentially Hush as this thing goes on, it was like, that's not enough. What else is going to come out of it? And yeah, there's been a lot of talk to that degree that Black Mask would make a decent build-up and underworld in Gotham.
And I think Matt Reeves is very smart by having multiple villains.
Right.
Now, it's not the way I want to see a Batman family series.
Sure.
I want to see Nightwing and Red Hood and Tim Drake and all that stuff. But in this movie, there's a lot of. I'm gonna go back and watch it. It's like Hush was or his dad was referenced in the film.
They built a universe quickly without a fear of introducing too much, but it was paced and small enough that you weren't overwhelmed.
Right.
There's no sense of there were 3 villains per se when you sit down and do the count because you're not thinking of Catwoman that way. Yet, here we go. We've now gotten 3 of the, I'd say, 8 major pinpoints that you need to hit passively with Batman before you introduce the family proper.
And you get really cool things like you get Joe Chill in that church without knowing it's Joe Chill,
which I am here to tell you I missed. Yeah. I will not front.
It was so good.
I'm ashamed.
I knew it as it was going on. I'm like, oh my god, this is amazing.
That's pretty boss.
And I think that's the more we talked about it at the store. That was 100% Venom. That wasn't adrenaline that he pumped.
Oh no, I don't think it was adrenaline.
Yeah,
my take was either Venom or Lazarus goo.
Right.
So Venom is fine.
It makes more sense. It's neon green.
Well, so is Lazarus goo.
Well, but
Paul.
I'm just saying it's just not adrenaline. It's not the boring.
No, it's not just an adrenaline.
No, he went crazy and.
That was. I loved that scene. It was
more than one reviewer did say though that guy's nose was smushed.
Oh, the guy who got unmasked?
I think it should have been worse, but I get it. Like, you know,
For those who are curious, this is a reference to the fact we were chatting about when the last Riddler goon is unmasked. The feeling was that it would have made a more powerful statement if his face was just demolished by that.
Yeah, Batman basically beats the living hell out of him.
And it's when he officially, because that's ultimately one of the morals of the movie, is that Batman without a grounding humanity
would have killed these people.
He would have killed them. That it was just, you know what it reminded me of? My boy Dan Slott did that miniseries a few years back, Learning to Crawl, in which Spider-Man at first is this soulless, going through the numbers superhero, and it's totally unsatisfying, and he's not doing a good job of being a hero.
Right.
It's only when he finds that swing of realizing it's only by not being frightful, by bringing my humor out and being myself in this environment, that I can engender a sense of hope and a humor that I won't be consumed by it all. And so it came from a similar place, and I really like that as a theme and takeaway.
And some people had a problem.
You gotta inspire hope.
I got people complaining online too about Batman not being vengeance, but being hope.
Well, of course, because they're all friggin' edgelords.
And I'm like, well, every hero, I don't know, every superhero ends up just being a symbol for hope. Like, you should know that's going to happen to all your heroes at one point.
Correct.
There was another thing that I thought that I saw that was very odd, a very odd criticism.
The thing that annoys me the most are the talking heads online, and especially the YouTube creators who, now this will sound terribly dismissive, and I don't mean it to, perhaps aren't as invested in these franchises as they believe they are. The weird ass surface guesses that go on.
I will go by they're not as knowledgeable, and they try to pretend they're knowledgeable.
Right. So anything is an Easter egg in their clumsy hands.
As much as you were giving me shit for not knowing all the members of Factor 3.
And I will continue to do so.
I didn't say Sebastian Shaw was in it. You know, I didn't come up with a weird...
you didn't just do crazy things.
Right. It's very...
It wasn't like reading Wikipedia and seeing the wild reaches that people make when they try to knit characters together.
Wikipedia's not... I don't know, maybe in your experience it's different, but Wikipedia seems to be okay for me, both the DC, Marvel, and main.
I guess I'm just kind of sensitive about it because I, like all responsible people, went through a period of deciding... Now that I work this 9 to 5 at this prestigious office environment, let me waste my day by becoming a Wikipedia contributor.
Yes.
And I would write the most eloquent entries. My Trapster entry should have won the Pulitzer. It was magnificent.
It got deleted.
Well, no, it's that anybody can contribute. So then you go on and someone who thinks they've mastered double negatives as poetry gets on there, and they've ruined my beautiful assertions.
They've murdered your boy.
Come back to me, Pete. So, yeah, but I don't know why we went off on Wikipedia, but...
The YouTube guys.
Guys don't even have that level.
Right. Not all of them.
If you look closely at this door, there's a Halloween decoration of a cat. This may be a reference to Catman. What the hell are you talking about?
Yeah, I've seen those too, and I just look at them like... The new joke, of course, is everything's Mephisto.
Correct.
Someone...
we have gone around in that. Anything Marvel does... Well, you know, if you think about it, this has got to be the Mephisto reveal. People, give up.
Someone said that for the Batman. There's Mephisto. I actually laugh. But as a joke.
That's always my post-credit thing is, did Nick Fury invite any of the characters to join the Avengers?
Post-credit scene, you know that website is active and is counting down to something? So I'm super excited now.
I am now going to make a statement that is going to lose me something, certainly in your eyes, perhaps in the world's eyes. When the movie was done, as I was exhausted and bloated with urine that needed to be released, I left. I did not care about the post-credit scene.
Fine. That's fine.
No, I feel that I failed, Paul. So you would be welcome to mock or perhaps even throw.
Well, it was just a website. It gave you the URL for the Riddler website, and it said goodbye. But apparently, in the real world, if you type in that website, it's updated every day.
Oh, so things are happening.
Yeah, and it's at 58% download.
Oh shit!
So everyone's like, "Oh man, what happens when it hits 100?"
I will have to check that out.
I would imagine if I'm using my, somewhat educated guess, that they're deciding who the villain is, the marketing villain is going to be for the second movie, and you might get like an owl face or a Hush.
That's
or
true.
Something.
It could just be a reference to whatever the deep seething evil is. That makes sense.
At this point, if it isn't a reference to the next movie, then this is going to go bad. A lot of people are on this website.
Before Lost was vomit, and they were making up good things as they went along. I think it was the end of season. It was 1 or 2. It was early on.
Yeah.
That there was a fake commercial that tied into the events of what was going on in the show. So, being a curious fellow, I popped it into the computer, and sure enough, it was then a rabbit hole that you could fall down to. It was an ARG, an augmented reality game, and if you followed it all the way through, you'd eventually win some sort of prize. And it, I believe, wound up being the people who figured it out, or either at New York Comic Con or San Diego, they were brought out onto a Lost panel, and they got to make a little spiel.
Oh, that's cool.
So maybe it's something like that, Paul.
Do you remember the earliest one that I remember?
What's that?
What is the Matrix?
Oh, dear Lord, that's right.
Man, I went nuts about. You didn't know anything from that website. It was just it was just like circles of marketing about like who is Morpheus. They gave you like he's a terrorist. Who is Trinity? All this stuff.
I think those are all fine questions to ask again under the current climate of what the Matrix has become.
Well, that's a whole other disappointing podcast.
You know, not to linger in the tragedy of the most recent Matrix movie, but I will ask you, because you might know this. The Matrix movie that just came out, the thing that just loped out of hell and it shat into all of our mouths, did it keep continuity from the MMO?
No.
For those who don't know, there was a massively multiplayer online game back when the first movie, I think, came out. Was it the first or the...
No, it's after the third movie.
Well, see, I like all good-hearted people ignored it, so I wasn't sure. So after the third, but that was all supposed to be canon, was it not?
So
yeah. I know Paul Chadwick worked on it, respected comic book talent. Rest in peace, brother.
It's unclear because the fourth movie is kind of a mess. So you don't know if Neo... in the Matrix,
was that the game that he designed?
Right. Yeah. So you don't know if the game ended with the third movie or the game kept on going.
So now this is where Keith Field, the master prover of points, shall show his mighty hand. So consider, if you will, the most recent Matrix movie and its relationship to whether or not it keeps continuity with that MMORPG. The MMO was sold by saying it's canon. It matters, capital I, capital M. So people who went to that as a continuation of that franchise, who then went to the newest movie, would find themselves a little perhaps flustered or frustrated that while they don't specifically let you know either way, whether it's canon or whether it isn't, they dance around the point so that they can have their cake and eat it too.
Which I hate.
So let us return to the matter of Mephisto guesses.
Oh.
This is the thing with all of this material that is coming out. They will dance around the idea of connectivity, but not really ever sign off. And Marvel is especially atrocious at this. Go watch all of the Netflix shows, which...
I just did, actually.
Yeah, which other than the first season and a half of Daredevil, I don't really have time for. But if you go into them and listen to their references to the cinematic universe, it's, again, dancing around the MMO without committing. When Jessica Jones refers to the Battle of New York, she doesn't say the Battle of New York. She doesn't say the Avengers. She says the incident.
Right, I hate that.
And then at some point refers to an alien attack. In this way, you can deny you're keeping continuity so that as relationships fracture, as production companies become rivals, and as things diminish, you can separate these things apart. So imagine my surprise when Disney made its big announcement of, we've brought the crappy shows no one actually likes but pretends to Disney+. Now, that having been said, you said you just watched them all.
Yes.
Do you defy my cavalier statement that no one of good heart should like those things?
The first season of Jessica Jones is very, very good.
I liked it until I realized they were never going to call the Purple Man the Purple Man. I know that I beat a dead horse here, but Keith's in it for the villains, people.
David Tennant was very, very good.
Yes, he was.
I should have known, though, from that first season that they...
You know what wasn't good?
Nuke was terrible.
Uh-huh. Ain't no defending Nuke, people. That was garbaggio.
Did you watch all of them? Or
I watched all of season 1 of every show.
So in season 3 of Jessica Jones, they make Hellcat, a member of the Defenders and the Avengers, into the first MCU hero turned into a villain.
Oh, really?
For reasons that her logic...
She's a terrible character that never should have been, no matter how vested in nostalgia you are.
But still...
But that's still a shitty use of the character.
It's disrespectful, in my opinion. I'm a very big... what a lot of people will realize through the coming podcasts...
He said years, people.
Yeah, I said years.
So if you fail his expectation that this is going to become a beloved and long-standing franchise, I want you to know that you're breaking little Paulito's heart.
Right.
And he doesn't deserve that. He's a sweet boy.
Thank you.
Go on, sweet boy.
I don't like disrespecting the characters of Marvel or DC superheroes.
Of course.
I think it's disrespectful to the fans, to the character itself. And I'm not saying a character needs to be Jesus. They could have flaws and they could be wrong. But Hellcat literally gets superpowers, kills murderers. And the Jessica Jones show treats her like Hannibal Lecter and Adolf Hitler combined. And it's insane. The entirety of New York City's police force is trying to get her. I need to remind you, this is a world that exists where you had the Punisher, a fake Daredevil in season 3, the entire gang situation in Luke Cage, and they didn't even get an iota.
Well, again, here's where I'll raise some
crazy.
eyebrows. That even though you have some of those actors appearing in each other's shows, even though they're making statements that suggest they're all in the same continuity, you can even make a case that they're narrowly evading ever committing fully.
Outside Defenders.
Outside of Defenders, obviously. And even then, you could suggest that it's happening in its own bubble.
I'm so mad in that Defenders preview that Matt Murdock had a freaking shirt over his head. I'm like, you sons of bitches.
No, we're ashamed of costumes. It's why we paid $1 billion for them.
I'm assuming, this is my own theory, that that's one of the reasons why Jeff Loeb lost his job at Marvel.
Well, if just for the Inhumans and the abomination that was.
Yeah, apparently I just read this.
Make no mistake, Brother Loeb. If somehow you heard this, I got no beef with you. The fact is, you brought some beautiful stuff, especially into the Distinguished Competitions house.
We hate no creators here.
No, they are all loved. No man is worth only as much as his worst storytelling decision. But I'll tell you, cutting off Medusa's hair might be that decision, buddy.
And apparently there's a direct quote that he did it for the budget concerns.
I don't care.
But
then don't make the show.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
It's a very you're making an Inhuman show. Yeah. Cut something else out, not her hair.
Let's make a Superman show, but capes have gone up in price tremendously. Let's dress him like a monkey.
But I will say the Netflix shows I would say
if we were starving for content, the Netflix shows would have been fine.
Some of them.
We're not. You step over a superhero movie every 2 seconds.
I would say that both Iron Fists are not very good. The second season of Jessica Jones, also not good.
Well, now, how can you say that? They made the bold choice to throw a dart at a wall and choose the well-known supervillain Mindwave as her love interest.
Right.
Remember Mindwave, Paul? Let me tell the people about Mindwave. Back in the 1970s, when Smilin' Stan was looking for interesting ways to put Marvel Comics in the media, he discovered a celebrity of the moment, and I stress moment. I speak, of course, of spoon-bending mystic. I almost didn't say that right. Uri Geller, or Galar. I don't know how that monster pronounces his name. But at any rate, he was going the whole that's incredible route. He was part of that dawning interest in the supernatural that was happening in the 70s. And Stan wanted to feature him in a comic. He thought that this guy was very marketable. I don't know anything about him. I believe he's from Israel and a cannibal. Those are lies, but they will make the story of Yuri that much more interesting. So it was that in a random issue of Daredevil, a new villain named Mindwave attacked New York City. He had some sort of psychic powers that enabled him to drive a little tank. And he had a small army of soldiers. Big resources for Mindwave. He's rampaging. Might have been Shea Stadium. Who knows? Daredevil's fighting him unsuccessfully. Who shows up? Uri Geller, the man who bends spoons. To which Mindwave responds, "Curse you, Uri Geller. You have defeated me yet again." When he is, of course, defeated, because it creates the idea that Uri has spent his time in the Marvel Universe fighting Mindwave.
Right.
All that having been said, we don't see him again for years until he decided to spend a very special night at the Bar with No Name and was taken out along with 15 other supervillains by my favorite hero, even though Paul wouldn't let me recognize him as such a few episodes ago, the Scourge of the Underworld. Justice is served, Mindwave died. So from that proud history grew Jessica Jones's romantic interest in season 2. And what friggin' nerd algebra leads up to that mix?
And this is the problem we were talking about with Taskmaster and Ghost. I don't understand.
Names out of a hat.
Right. It's very, very odd to me when you see things that are done correctly in, say, I'm going to say Marvel movies, but that's not like Avengers. Like
Sure.
The Avengers movies are pretty
and it's not just
accurate.
movies. I think that's worth pointing out that now that the merchandising is obviously as mainstream as it is, when that god awful Avengers movie came out Avengers game came out, a record-settingly failed game made history for the drop-off in participation.
And what's crazy too is like I'm going to say normies in a loving term, but the normies were like, these are.
If we were just a little more nerdy, we could call them muggles.
Well, I'm not going to go that far.
Oh, come on, Paul.
No.
Call them muggles so I can make fun of you.
I draw the line at calling the casual fan a muggle. But I will say it's like the dollar store knockoff version of the Avengers, and the mainstream was saying that, not the fans.
Right.
Plus, you had the game failing, which I think is pretty official at this point.
Right.
I just found out too over the weekend, the Guardians of the Galaxy game, while liked, also failed to meet expectations. And I stand by, well, why does Star-Lord look like a Chris Pratt stand-in instead of just looking like Star-Lord from the comic?
Sure.
That's the thing. Like, why would you make those choices?
I say it a lot because I think that it is the shared flaw that gives rise to all of these questions. It's the want to have your cake and eat it too. I happen to know people who are involved in the development of the Avengers game, and as I mocked the game during its development, my thing was, what are these character models you guys have chosen to use? You made the bold decision to take the superheroine whose powers are guns and sex and make her look like she's been hit in the face with a rock.
Right.
And it was, well, that's one of those things we fight about, what version of the characters to use. So, and there was another game before that where it's like, okay, you're using the ultimate version of this character.
Oh, I hate that.
You're using the movie version of this character. You're using the mainstream comic version of this. What are you doing?
Yeah.
And the answer is, you have too many people, too many cooks involved with these projects, and they're all scrapping. And when the final word falls to people that are in the total outside of the creative process, most notably marketing, you're having someone who's even less invested just making a flip decision because you're dithering over incel garbage.
And I think
just say it's this.
And that's why I think the Arkham games and to a lesser extent the Spider-Man games work so well.
Right.
Because they pick their own aesthetic. And they stay with it.
And when the Arkham games stopped doing that,
that's when
it's why they dropped off in quality.
Right. I think the Suicide Squad game is in a lot of trouble.
Well,
a lot of trouble.
Let's talk about that, right?
I think it's...
You have these two movies coming out. You have the new Batman game, which is what? Gotham Knights?
Gotham Knights.
Okay, you have Gotham Knights. Gotham Knights doesn't happen in the Arkham continuity. Hey, Warner Brothers, I'm not going to say anything hateful, especially not in the presence of your number one fan, Arbel Hoyle. But when it comes down to it, people want a shared continuity of thought. And if that company is putting out a DC game, put them in the same damn universe.
Yeah, I can't pretend to know what the rationale is. Yeah. I also don't even know.
Even if Batman is going... Now, this isn't a spoiler. This is just a game telegraphing its move. When we find out that Bruce Wayne is either the head of the Court of Owls in that game or being held captive by them...
He's actually... I knew this and I forgot. He's held captive by somebody who...
Look, it's like I have powers. I just guessed that.
Yeah, I think it's been rumored or / revealed. It is the Court of Owls, but there's someone established running the Court of Owls, and I wish I remembered
I'll guarantee it's Ra's al Ghul.
No, it's not.
I'm telling you, someone's going to tip that hand.
I'm telling you.
I hope it's not Matt Reeves.
It feels as crazy as, like, it's Dr. Hurt. Like, it's something really out of left field.
I like Dr. Hurt, so I'll accept that, because then I'll be able to say Dr. Hurt is in a video game.
But I don't know if this game a beat 'em up? Is this game...
It's going to play just like Arkham.
But
it'll be clumsier in the same way that
But everything
the god awful last few. But
everything looks
the last Arkham.
But everything looks cleaner.
Arkham Origins,
right? But everything looks cleaner to me. You know what I mean? Like nothing.
I
looks,
think it's just because it's newer and it's next gen system.
Maybe. Well, Suicide Squad Kills Justice League.
No, that was the original point. That thing looks like vomit.
Yeah,
that thing looks like 3 projects that got strung together with apologies.
You should have just made the Superman game. I'm sure that's pretty public knowledge at this point. It's if there's one thing WB likes to do, it's like, oh, you're making a Superman property. Can we turn it into a Batman property? I don't get it.
What the hell version of any of these characters are there? I remember being confused by the Deadshot presence.
I think,
was it Deadshot? Was it Bloodsport? I don't know.
So the game is getting delayed. That's official.
Sure.
And I know that they wanted this to be in the Arkham universe. I think they're gonna do the thing where it is blood. It's Bloodshot, and they've never or Bloodsport. It's too many blood characters.
Indeed.
And in the trailer, they never call him Lawton, I think.
Okay.
So he might just be wearing the armor of Deadshot.
I was going to say, but he's clearly supposed to be Deadshot.
Oh, yeah, but they screwed up. Someone screwed up.
Or that's them trying to back tie to the Will Smith Deadshot, which I'd have no problem with per se, but
you
if
can't
this
be
is
in
happening in the Arkham universe, then you can't do that.
I agree 100%,
Yeah.
but it's not. You can't contradict the thing that
I agree. You're the one setting up that continuity.
And you know what this thing that sucks about that game is the Justice League trailer. Look, the animation or graphics look great.
Sure.
I mean, Jon Stewart's 2 seconds. Well, he was doing some constructs. He looked good. Like it looked the best I've seen a Green Lantern look in a video game ever.
If I was going to make any plea to the world of software design, it's make actual RPG style games based on these properties that they will sell people.
Well, see, the problem I've been told this, and this is some insider knowledge.
Yeah.
That's
what the people are here for.
This is what gets people in the seat.
Honor the contract of trust.
Butts in the seats. So it's pretty easy to figure out that the people with the money, either at the studios, the video game studios, or the property rights holders, they just don't think the game will sell. That's bottom line. They think it's too much effort.
Based on nothing.
Right.
If you're putting out one game, then you can put out the better game.
It's like that joke, and I don't know what the original joke is, but this is I'm paraphrasing it. Oh, we're a video game company. We need to make a video game. We're going to go out of business. Well, how much is it going to cost to make it? $10 million. Oh, we can't afford to make it. And then you don't make a video game and you go out of business. That's how these companies operate. And I will never.
I don't even want to do that. The honor of calling it a self-fulfilling prophecy.
No, it's not.
It's the obvious curve of stupidity.
If you did, and RPG is a great example. DC Online came out over a decade ago.
It's still playable, even with its somewhat clumsy interface.
Now imagine making a more thought out version where you're able, and again, DC Online almost failed because people thought they were playing as the characters.
Right.
They did not know until like a month before launch that you were creating your own character.
Anytime I have had the conversation, and I have, with folks, quote, in the industry about these games, whether it's a video game or whether it was a tabletop game, my input is always people want to play their own hero in that universe. Now, the problem, and you know this all too well, given your alma mater, is that when one game like that comes out that fails, there's no time taken to examine why that game specifically failed. It's just, that's proof it'll never work.
Oh, you did.
So, when you make some crapo, like Z-grade X-Men game that you're slapping the barest of role-playing elements onto, look, you make your own mutant. See, and that game didn't do well, so obviously it failed. You're not looking at the fact of, no, you couldn't make your own character. You had to choose one of 3. And then once you did, you were forced into the same exact plot line about the Church of Humanity or some garbage.
Yeah, I barely
whatever that
remember
game was.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you're coming down off of 2 very exciting and very thoughtful games put out by Raven, the X-Men Legends games. So, of course, this weird aberrative game failed. It had nothing to do with the fact that it was an RPG.
I'll still do you one further. Again, going back to Arkham and Spider-Man. Arkham City... Is Arkham City? Yeah, Arkham City
is the second one.
Is the most expansive of any of them. You could play as a Batman Beyond skin. You could play as an Azrael skin. I think you could play as Nightwing. Is that DLC? Something like that. But DC...
Suffice to say, there's a variety of skins you can use.
But the Avengers...
You can play as the... What was that horrible Justice League book that Giffen and DeMatteis put out where it started off okay? It was about a future Justice
League 3000.
And then somebody obviously sabotaged / took it over.
It was Keith Giffen. No,
there you go. And turned it into they're all women and all the characters you tuned in for are now dead.
Everybody told him to be like, hey, keep this serious. He said, you got it. And it devolved into comedy.
I was very excited about the first 4 issues of that book.
That did very well, and then it didn't.
But I just remember he was one of the skins. But continue. Don't let me deride you.
But there's this thing where DC more than Marvel, or even let's just say the Avengers game, I thought the idea of playing the Hulk for a level, or Cap for a level,
That's
or whatever,
fine.
very, very cool. But when you're like, oh, I'm fighting the same AIM robot throughout the entire game, and the 3 villains are Abomination, Taskmaster, and MODOK, which I think is the most random supervillain team up ever.
And the poorest translation of the spirit of any of those characters.
Well, even the DLCs are screwing up. The Hawkeye DLC has him fighting the Maestro. It wasn't executed correctly.
Correct.
If you did like a Justice League game where you could pick one of the 7 main members and you could do different skins.
Here was a suggestion of mine.
It'd be huge.
Imagine, if you will, this is my big pitch, a Marvel RPG. Mephisto is one. Hell is spilling over onto Earth, so you're creating a fantasy scenario within the Marvel Universe. You, then, Dark Age style, are making an alternate version of an existing hero. So let's say a demon-possessed Wolverine, or a Spider-Man wearing Doctor Strange's cloak who can practice magic. You adapt the character in a Diablo-like 3/4 perspective top-down RPG.
That could be cool.
And as you gather items, you personalize the character. So by the end, you could have the cool Adaptoid-like patchwork of 10 billion weapons. And then you have a level of investment in that character. One of the video games that I thought actually did weirdly succeed was the Marvel MMO from, I think it was Kabillion. It was basically there were 10 billion skins. It was Bendis wrote the quote unquote story. It was very fun.
I'm vaguely remembering this. But
it was there because they did a kids MMO and then and then they punched it up and it was very fun. I played through it.
And this is just
Old Man Logan, but the point was you were all characters from alternate realities. So you could have a party of 4 or 5 Hulks. You could have Old Man Logan in a party with Jim Lee, Wolverine. It was neat, and that's generally the direction this stuff should go in.
Well, I like the
as opposed to here is the ugly Black Widow. Now have fun.
I like it. The reason I dropped out of DC Online pretty quickly. Because I didn't like...
Oh, Paul, I'm ashamed of you.
No, I did.
Wait a minute. I'm going to... Once again, I must call you out.
Right.
Because I, the master of selective memory, remember something. Didn't you buy a lifetime subscription to that game?
I did.
Well, I'm proud of you for admitting it.
But I lasted long... The lifetime subscription was like... I don't even know. It was like $60 or something, which would have equaled...
Says you.
Or whatever.
You gave a kidney to those people.
It would have been like 6 months or something. And I definitely played for 6 months.
Okay.
But that's not very...
That's not that bad. That was more than enough to see all the content.
I played Star Trek Online for like 4 years.
Really?
And I was smart and got the lifetime membership for that too.
This is an ongoing theme. See, now I'm fascinated by this.
Yeah, I thought they did a very good job at Star Trek.
Everyone I've ever spoken to has given very mixed reviews, but the thing that they all share is that they played it for years.
Yeah, oh yeah.
So in that way, it's kind of like being a Star Trek fan. That you're brutalized at every turn, yet you keep bellying back to the bar.
It was very good. And to be honest with you, I stopped playing because I just...
question of time and
I was working
too
much at DC. And... I'm glad I didn't make it all the way. I know things started falling apart in the community when they added the Discovery stuff.
Ugh.
They lost. I mean, I don't remember the website. You see like the populations of MMOs. Holy cow! The population.
I didn't sign on for this crap, Jackson.
I jumped on just to see it on my PlayStation 5, and it's like I don't want to say it's a ghost town, but there's all this, STD at Star Trek, Star Trek Discovery is called STD.
Yes.
And there's
with good cause.
Right. There's so much STD stuff. There's like no next gen or original series. It's
that's
just
all
crazy.
What you call it, Paramount. It's the same as Disney saying you can't use the Star Wars that anybody wants to look at. Throw Rey on your product.
And they've just said the Star Trek 4 Abrams.
Not that you don't want to look at Rey. But you all know what I mean.
They just said that Star Trek 4 has been greenlit again.
Again?
Because it was originally killed. Remember Chris Hemsworth?
Oh, you're saying this? I thought
franchise.
This thing had pretty well run its course.
No. This is
What about Chekhov?
Unknown. We don't even know the plot of this movie.
And no more. If they fight Nomad, I'll accept it. I've always felt Nomad would be a marvelous movie villain.
Well, that's the thing. I actually like the first 2 Star Trek movies.
Oh,
the Abrams movies. It's the Star Trek Beyond was so bizarre,
and
where you have so many alien races and concepts, and you make up another like poor man's Borg, and they destroy the Enterprise, and you're like, what?
The thing I agreed with you as well about was once you lie to me about what's in your movie, and you lie.
This is why no one talks to JJ. The news,
the media,
you
lose a lot of support from yours truly.
Yeah, you can't. There's one thing when Marvel.
There's no alleged necessity there. People.
No, it's like, oh, here's a fake scene in a trailer. There's one thing. Abrams told every news outlet that Benedict Cumberbatch was not Khan.
Correct. He was Mephisto.
And I don't remember who someone like, I don't know, Deadline. It was one of the more serious outlets confronted him, being like, we have evidence. You're saying they're lying. He's like, yeah.
Go away, incel.
Yeah, he's like, oh, they're lying. He's not it. And then opening weekend happened, and I just remember announcements. We will never be interviewing J.J. Abrams ever again. And
history's greatest villain.
And if you remember, if you're an industry guy or person, when Force Awakens came out, there were plenty of fluff pieces with Abrams talking to a reporter. There were no interviews because every news outlet has been like, we're done talking to J.J. Abrams. If you want to pay us money to run an ad, then we'll do that, which is what he did.
Right.
But we will not do a sitting one-on-one talking about a movie with him because we can't trust anything he says, which I'm all for because that was that's a huge like...
Oh, it just on principle is disgusting.
Right.
If you are that,
and this doesn't equate like
lacking of imagination, and you're telling your cookie cutter obvious, well, now we have to use Khan because that's what's been done before.
Right.
Then F you.
No,
don't lie to make up for your lack of creativity, Hollywood monkey.
And this is not the same thing as like cornering Andrew Garfield at a red carpet premiere and be like, "Are you in Spider-Man?" And then he goes, I can't really talk about." No,
exactly.
That's not the same thing.
That's a boy who is closed into a contract and doesn't want to release.
Yeah, you don't get him into. He's not promoting Spider-Man: No Way Home while saying he's not in it.
He's not sitting in the spirit of pretension during an interview saying, "And here's what I'm trying to accomplish with my movie."
Right.
And, when you're in such a rich history, so friggin' rich that apparently there's only one villain that exists within that history. It's the shortcuts to a lack of imagination or innovation are the things that infuriate me the most.
Right. Well, even the Star Trek 4 that was supposed to happen, it might still be.
Was it going to involve the whales at least?
No, it was.
Damn them!
It was time travel. They were bringing back Chris Hemsworth to be Kirk's dad. And no one else knew.
That's the story to tell.
But the only reason they're doing it is because Chris Hemsworth is bigger than Chris Pine, which no one would have thought that was going to happen.
Until I see a CGI infant Clint Howard on a movie screen laughing hysterically, then it's not Star Trek.
Wouldn't you want that to be animatronic, though, more than CGI?
I don't care, as long as baby Clint is laughing on a screen. That's what matters, Paul. That's the heart of the franchise.
You know what's? I don't recall if we were talking about this in the previous podcast. Did I talk to you? I saw Nightmare Alley.
I don't think we talked about it in the podcast.
You need to see it.
Really?
Because I have a lot of I'm very conflicted by this movie.
I missed it. It was one of those cases because of cursed COVID.
Right.
Just wasn't able to get to the theater.
It's like Del Toro. It's a remake. There's a 40s noir movie called Nightmare Alley.
Very well regarded.
And this is Del Toro's take on it.
Right.
And I don't know if I like it or not. I don't.
Well,
it's
Paul,
visually
I
beautiful.
appreciate that as your takeaway, rather than just leaping at a choice. And I do plan to watch it. My thing with him, and that's why I applaud you for this, is that every one of his movies is a weird mixed bag for me. That man is brilliant. His love of the genre cannot be denied. He's intelligent and he is magnificent. When he tells stories about his past, I'm like, this man is my friggin' hero. But when it comes to his finished product, I always feel like it's torn between two masters.
Even Pan's Labyrinth?
Even Pan's Labyrinth. Because I asked this question. if Pan's Labyrinth was not shot in a foreign language to us, and you had it just as a straight vanilla Hollywood release, I maintain that it would lose whatever sense of mystery has catapulted it to this golden calf status with people when it's just kind of a very straightforward fairy tale.
I would say
I will not take away from it the visuals in any of his movies.
Yeah, I'll give
I will
you.
not.
Okay, I kind of.
So I will qualify it there.
I see your point with that, but
I feel there's a certain amount of pretension that informs the attitudes of most of the audience that would fall on a knife for him. Now, I'm not here per se to change anyone's mind, but that's the feeling I get in discussion of his movies.
I would challenge you, and I know I kind of know what you're saying, but like what. I don't think you can name a movie that would do the same thing in a decent that you compare as being as good or competent as Pan's Labyrinth in terms of like Stardust is. And I like the Stardust movie.
That movie was an abortion. Stop it! Everyone went into it with the best of intentions.
Yeah.
Claire Danes is one of God's most perfect creatures. And she's only missing one bit of plumbing for me. And
Charlie Cox,
and De Niro was hilarious.
Daredevil's great, but like that's what I'm saying. They're both telling fairy tale stories, but Pan's Labyrinth is done much better in terms of writing and directing.
Let me think of a fairy tale story I like better than both.
But Us. Oh man, are you going to see Nope? Are you excited about Nope?
I will see anything as long as it times out. So I have every intention of going to see it. It freaks me out at the end of that trailer when she gets blown up into the air. It's so real. It looks niftily.
It's got to be
surreal and possible.
I talked to a friend of mine saying that has to be practical. I think they've got her on wires or something.
Inverted bungee carry them up and you phase out the line.
Because the scream, the body language. I'm like, that's really good.
It's a neat looking scene.
Have you been noticing all the freaks in it? The woman with the burnt mouth, and then the little person with like the baby hand. I'm like, oh, this might actually.
I think it's gonna be some nice nightmare film. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. And as we said a couple of chats ago, certainly looking forward to X. That looks great. Was just talking to somebody at work about that.
I really hope the two old people aren't the kill. I hope there's somebody else. For the love of God, I don't want them to be. They can just be
the matron of a family of lunatics. That's fine. But back to Guillermo for a moment. My biggest complaint with him is this. In his heroic pursuit, of these brilliant visuals, the visuals are a little too brilliant at times. No fairyland or mystical environment is going to produce a person with a church for a head. And that's kind of my universal dismissal of all of this stuff.
I guess I could be that nitpicky too, so I can't say
nitpicky.
Well, because it's it's a vision, and so I like.
Do people live in that church, Paul?
In my head, yeah. People like little
are like the lobes of his brains, little priests who move from room to room. I think like little carrying out the functions of his head.
Skinny priests with like little fairy wings.
Are there altar boys that push the snot of church heads head into the equivalent of his nose?
I think so.
Like the organ feed is where he sneezes from.
Well, how does anything make sense from the two Hellboy movies?
But this is kind of the point, isn't it?
Well, that's.
But again, there's beautiful visuals. I hated Hellboy 2. Didn't like it at all. But I really liked the little goblin in the cart. That was my takeaway. That's why I paid $8, was to see the little goblin in the cart.
I will say Hellboy 2 is a lot of the visual. That's all visuals, that whole movie. There's not a lot of
I know
fun.
Neither one of you will be able to help me with this, but in his remake of one of my favorite things, whether it's movie, TV show, or monkey brains, in all of reality, is the original 70s made-for-TV horror film, Don't Be Afraid of the Dark. Now, if you kids have never seen this, Keith does own it, so he's more than happy to premiere it for the curious.
The original one?
The original is one of the most terrifying things, not only that young Keith Field ever saw, that any human being can ever see. It is the story of these hideous little creatures living in this old stately manor who are terrorizing a woman. And beyond that, there's not much else to say other than the sets work and are made creepy in their low-budget 70s simplicity. It's a magnificent film. Gives you the willies every time. Now, he remade this film, and he did a capable job despite my Total inability to get behind the heroine, which of course was poor Katie Holmes.
No.
She sticks out like a sore thumb in pretty much anything. You know, the whole time I'm like, if this was Jessica Chastain, this would be the best movie ever made. And it was fine. However, he decides now, and this is one of the things I respect so much about him. He's such a devotee of horror and really loves weird fiction that he tries to tie the little critters to an actual author in Lovecraftian style. He suggests that they are much like the white people of which Arthur Machen wrote. Now, I have always pronounced that author's name Machen. He, of course, is the legendary author of the great god Pan. But he has his characters pronounce it Macon.
Yeah.
So I propose to the two of you and to the world, what is the proper pronunciation of Machen/Macon?
I'm going to say, since my parents...
Macon bacon.
Since my parents are immigrants and
Excellent.
also
Use
don't
your powers
speak,
of Portuguese, Paul.
right? And I know Gilmore. He's Mexican, I believe.
You are
and
correct.
And English is not his first language. It's almost like the British thing where you add vowels.
Now, see, I didn't want to, in all of my arrogance, assume that it was a break of language and subtleties the same, since it made it to a movie.
But it's just the way. It's that. You ever watch like Star Trek: Next Generation?
I have.
And how Picard, or any show with a British person where it's like schedule schedule. They're both the same. Those are both correct.
So that is what you are suggesting.
Yeah, they're both correct. They're both correct.
I can accept that. Thank you, Paul. I'll be able to sleep tonight.
It's like it's when people say Miller or Millar.
I do that all the time.
Right, it's the same.
Millar sounds like you're making fun of the man.
Well, people think Millar is more dignified for some reason. I've heard
Not
that.
I feel like I am intentionally mispronouncing a word to mock a man.
And that's only Mark
Millar.
And it's only Mark Miller who I think prefers it Miller.
Well, since you brought him up, you did bring up the whole ruining of two character ideas with the Crimson Dynamo and Whiplash,
You're okay.
who are merged together into Mickey Rourke.
Right.
You want to talk about fourth dimensional algebra? There you go. It was Mr. Millar who made that happen, because the villain of Iron Man 2 was indeed the Crimson Dynamo.
Did he?
It was he who fought for the Whiplash, bizarro, sideways amalgam character.
God.
Yeah. There was even talk of the Titanium Man. Don't think that doesn't hurt me, Paul, as he's one of my favorite characters in the Marvel Universe.
Do you remember when Marvel introduced the Iron Man 2 Whiplash to the comic?
And he's still running around. They won't abandon this thing.
And this, for anyone who's confused, no, this version has nothing to do with the movie version.
Correct.
It's just that he visually sort of, kind of looks like him.
Kind of is something to really stress.
Right.
He has a V-shaped full face mask like Vega from Street Fighter.
Right, and
I'd rather see Iron Man fighting Vega.
He has a green ponytail, long green ponytailed hair.
I can understand the want to have the recognizable movie character in there, but he doesn't look like the movie character. And this character has gained no traction as a replacement Whiplash.
And he's also not connected to Crimson Dynamos.
No, even though he has the same civilian name. For those who care about this sort of thing, the original Crimson Dynamo was a character named Anton Vanko, and he appeared once and died in his second appearance. Then Whiplash was a character named Mark Scarlatti. He was a mercenary. He had a fine career during the late 60s, early 70s. He eventually changed his name to the much more impressive Blacklash during the Bob McLeod Michelini run of Iron Man, which many people look at as the only run that matters of Iron Man. I'm among them. And he came out of that, and then in the Go-Go Edgelord in the late 90s, he got killed off.
Yeah, well, he went back to Whiplash. He went back
to Whiplash. He wound up in friggin' Elektra. You want to talk about a graveyard to dump a character in? That Elektra ongoing was terrible.
He was killed by a sentient armor.
It established that he had a kid. It established that he had connections to the S&M community, because that's not gross.
He's a whip, because of the whip stuff.
And then he showed up in Mr. Joe Quesada's run of Iron Man that featured a sentient Iron Man armor that beat him to death.
And then dropped his body in the ocean.
That's not too friggin' gross. And then we get him as a movie villain. So at any rate, you have the sequel coming out. You want an armored, recognizable villain, obviously. So they chose the Crimson Dynamo, a perennial supervillain. one of a series of men to wear the armor after the original Anton Vanko. So this Millar chooses, no, don't go that route. Let's do this bizarre convolution where we combine a new version of Whiplash to the existing version of the Dynamo and create a character that resembles neither one of them.
And the sad part is that if you had...
He had a parrot, though. Which I think it was actually Mickey Rourke's parrot.
No, that was Mickey
right?
Rourke's parrot. Apparently
Yay! The one thing I remember wasn't even theirs.
The story goes that Jon Favreau was like, who the hell's parrot is this? And they're like, it's Mickey Rourke's. And they worked it into the movie because he didn't want to like upset the apple cart.
Sure.
And I actually like the Whiplash stuff more than I do in terms of visuals.
Sure.
More than I do.
Whips are cool, man.
Him whipping the cars were cool.
Just look at that character they claimed was Shang-Chi, the one who fought with the Hyrule Warriors distance bracelets.
Yeah.
That shows you that ultimately a whip is a cool distance radius weapon.
But when he's wearing the faux Crimson Dynamo armor, it's like a hobo trash can armor. Right. And I'm like, what is this?
Whatever character you tried to build is gone now that generico armor man is assaulted.
And I get the criticism of like armored villains versus armored villains, or heroes. But
it's the first time you're doing it.
And it's also not done well.
Right.
Like, everybody forgets that, yes, Crimson Dynamo and Titanium Man are wearing vastly different armors than Tony. Right. They're not wearing, like, the skin tight or the appearance of skin tight.
Titanium Man, done right, is supposed to be a walking tank.
Hulk.
He's a mech. He's huge.
But, like... this Whiplash is wearing like a hobo armor where you see like his skin, like there's joints. He's
virtually indistinguishable from the Ironmonger, other than he's shorter.
Right.
And if you look close, you can see that he has whips.
Yeah. Oh, and I hate the mandroids that they didn't call mandroids. These are our drones. Are they mandroids? Sure.
Again, you got the sense of poor Johnny Fab is being just handed all this bullshit to pour in before they had their connectivity down to a science.
Sam Rockwell as Justin Hammer.
Wasted.
Best part of that movie.
And he was magnificent.
Never seen ever again.
Nope. Well, he was in that made-for-the-DVD special where we saw the fake Mandarin getting taken
I know
to jail.
You don't watch any of the Netflix shows. There's so much Justin Hammer stuff. Like
I remember Luke that from the show about the guy who got his powers from sea cucumbers, because that's certainly not Luke Cage. Because Sea Cucumber Man, his enemy buys or steals a suit of power armor
from Justin Hammer.
Yeah. And then goes to fight Sea Cucumber Man.
Yeah. There's also either Defenders or Iron Fist. Someone has hammer weapons. It's probably Defenders. They probably have hammer guns or something.
What is it with the Z-grade Marvel enthusiasts and Sea Cucumbers? Because it's not just Luke Cage.
Listen to me. I lost.
That's why Ang Lee's Incredible Hulk was green.
Are you kidding?
No.
Oh, you're right. You're right.
I wish to align the spiritual poetry of the ever-raging sea cucumber to my version of the Hulk. I want to believe that speech was made in a bamboo hut.
We should probably cut that part out.
There's nothing racially insensitive about that. Have you met Ang Lee? That's how he talks.
My wife thought I was going crazy because she's like, "Why are you getting so mad?" I'm like, "Because he gets his powers from a failed Captain America serum. There's no need for sea cucumbers, and it's insulting."
Wasn't there, though?
And again, it's insulting.
And it wasn't just. Let's not forget that much like the most unpleasant slice of pizza I ever ate, there were multiple sea creatures involved in the creation of Luke Cage.
Oh, you're right. The jellyfish, right?
There was jellyfish, and there was abalone. Because that was the whole thing. That what's her face, Hottie McNursey said. Well, Nurse, if you look at the way abalone work, we can treat him this way.
So dumb.
I'm hating this character more and more. He's got more to do with fish than goddamn Namor.
And this goes to I know this could be nerdy, and I get it, but there has to be rules in your story.
Right.
Luke Cage in Jessica Jones is getting the shit kicked out of him by Jessica Jones, whose fists break concrete.
Right.
He gets shot in the face with a shotgun and has internal bleeding. Now, if anyone who doesn't have firearms or ever seen a firearm, I promise you that a shotgun can't blow up concrete at point blank range.
Ladies and gentlemen, Paul's promise to America and beyond Shotgun, no, break the concrete.
So it doesn't explode like an explosion.
But what will it do to a sea cucumber?
Apparently almost kill him for some reason. And it's these like fundamental not understanding superpowers. And you're like, oh, it's too geeky or childish. It's like, no, you're breaking the rules that of your own universe.
Why call it these things? Why pay for licensing? Why buy these concepts if you're not going to stay spiritually true to them?
This is, again, spoilers for season 3 of Jessica Jones. Jessica Jones gets stabbed, loses a spleen, right? It's all over the news. It's all over.
I did not know this. But Jessica Jones is now not the rape survivor and defender of I don't know, private detectives' rights. She is now the superhero missing a spleen.
Right. So she's all over the news. She's all over the news about being in the hospital, being injured because she's Jessica Jones at this point.
I so regret selling off all my Alias comics now, knowing she is spleenless.
When Hellcat goes on the run, which she has not proven for anything,
right?
Luke Cage shows up to tell Jessica, "You need to take her down." Excuse me, asshole. Where were you when she's in the hospital with no spleen? That's bad writing. Luke Cage would not do that. And it's very odd that, like, this is how you're...
Did the two of them fall in love in the shows?
No, they hooked up.
They hooked up, but they didn't wind up together. No. Because he wound up with Uri Geller's arch foe. She wound up with Mindwave. So I was concerned.
They hook up... oh, man, you're making me think. They do not stay together because he is obsessed with the death of his ex-wife. So he can't, like, get into a relationship with her.
You know, I at various times have owned every Luke Cage comic that ever was. I could count the amount of times he talked about his first wife.
He has one, right? Or no? In the comics?
On let's see, 2 fingers.
He does.
Because it's so not a part of the character, it's rarely ever even suggested.
And I'm sorry, too, that it's such a convoluted, like, Jessica Jones killed her. And I'm like, I know the Marvel Universe is small, but this is too small.
It's a whole hell of a lot smaller than the new Gotham complainants. Complainants.
Anyway, yes. I get very annoyed at dumb things like that. And Jessica Jones's Mindwave. I have the powers to detect when people are evil. So I'm here to tell you that Hellcat is evil. No. Gah. It's like, dude, that's not how powers work. You're not magic. You're supposed to be a mutant or whatever.
Is evil a gene, then? For as The Simpsons suggested, Hitler had the evil gene.
So did the evil.
Apparently, so did Hellcat. Maro.
Yeah. So there's a lot of, like, you know, it's that thing we talked about. You spend all this money to get $1 billion, 100,000 characters, and you're going to use 4 of them, and 3 of them will be used incorrectly. I just don't. I know what it is. It's in my opinion, a lot of it is ego.
Yeah.
Like I want to put a name on I want to put my spin on this.
Right.
I want to be credited for, like,
oh, make no mistake.
Doing this.
If the filmmakers had their choice, even making an Avengers movie, there would not be one recognizable villain or background character or concept name. It would be the most juvenile, simple ideals so that you can get a piece of the merchandising when Crazy Man, my villain, is featured as the heart of one of these things.
I would argue too the weakest Avenger movie is Age of Ultron, because that ain't Ultron. That's the sentient armor we were talking about, just put into a robot.
That's the character I refer to as Robot California.
Right. Yeah, and I love and I like James Spader, and I don't think the villain is horrible.
But everyone's favorite champion of human rights and not a weird rapey douche at all, Joss Whedon.
Oh, Joss Whedon.
His whole thing about the movie was, for years, whenever I saw Ultron speak, I imagined James Spader.
No way.
You had a problem there, buddy, because every time I saw Ultron speaking, I imagined a hideous electronic atomic whine that sounded like a reactor melting down.
Non-comic book readers really take for granted the fact that, comic book readers take for granted that when you read a comic and the word balloon is all, like, scratchy or, like, different colors.
Every letter is in a different, like, caps to lowercase.
In your brain, you take for granted, oh, yeah, he's not speaking in a human voice.
He's talking in creepy Mephisto talk.
Right. But then you watch a movie, and it's James Spader, and even...
I'm charming, father.
And even, I'll even give, I'm gonna blank, and people are gonna kill me. Thanos.
My plan is to invest in a line of penis-flavored beverages.
Right. Yeah. It's not great, but Josh Brolin, great job as Thanos.
Exactly. Yes.
But I love different. I guess Heath Ledger's Joker's when an actor changes his voice to being unrecognizable,
Right.
Magic trick.
Right, that's cool.
Let me
that's
hit you
very,
with
very
a
cool.
patented spot question as we wind down the chatter of the moment.
Yep.
Actually, we'll do both of them. That'll
Go
make it
ahead.
more interesting.
Go ahead.
The final topic will be, of the Marvel and DC films that we have been offered, and you can go to any source you wish, who is your favorite Marvel and DC villain featured in any of these movies? Because it's a hard question. We'll start with DC because there's a less fruitful series
Yeah,
of choices.
DC. It's a very easy cop out.
Yep.
It's Joker.
There's going to be a cop out. Which Joker?
The Heath Ledger Joker. I can't. There's
Perfect.
no one even close.
It was that whole movie. It was everything, and all of the praise was well deserved.
I would argue that if he was,
it's a perfect version of the Joker, by the way.
Yeah, and I would argue that if he's in a better movie,
of course,
Mark Strong's Sinestro would have been amazing. I think
because
he
was
looked
perfect
and acted,
appearance. Yes.
What a never ever do a movie, kids, when you're not. And let all your good stuff happen in the second movie.
Most pathetic mid-credits scene ever.
And then no second movie.
And then no second movie.
With Marvel, it's harder.
Well, I will tell you that my
Go ahead with your DC while I'm thinking. Yeah.
Will be the master himself, Danny DeVito, as the Penguin in Batman Returns. That is my perennial favorite. My only complaint, of course, is there was no reason for him to quote-unquote die at the end of that movie.
Well, he was dying internally. As a kid, that black goop was his body.
He was dying from the day he was born.
Right.
And this was him accelerating to his final point. I'm not crazy miffed about it, but that was the only negative note that was hit for me. I thought he was perfect in every way.
Do you know it took me until high school to get that joke he makes in the campaign? Remember when that douchey guy makes a joke about the way he looks, while he's running for mayor.
Okay.
And he's like, well, I guess that's better than having blood gushing out of my nose. And then he fights
right.
I don't know why I was a dumb kid. I never understood what that...
I can say nothing. What? I didn't recognize the Joe Chill scene, so you get a little bit of a pass for me.
I was 10 when that...
There you go. I was 10-something. Right. Because it was just a few weeks ago. What would be your Marvel pick?
Marvel...
and you can go obvious. It's not like we have a lot of fruit.
I'm going to go with, and this might shock people because it's not an MCU villain.
Right.
William Dafoe. Well, yes, he is MCU. William Dafoe, Green Goblin.
Yeah.
I mean, I need 4 more movies with him as Green Goblin.
Ladies and gentlemen, remember this moment.
We're in agreement.
For as Richard intones rolling drums and screaming masses, my answer is indeed that Norman Osborn, that Green Goblin, the minute he threw away that piece of shit Power Ranger costume and came dressed in rags and goggles like the most magnificent and terrifying fiend that ever was.
His face looked more like the Goblin than it did in the first movie. It was crazy good.
It was everything I dreamed of. With an honorable mention being poor Elias Starr, who died in an uncredited role 30 seconds during it.
And so ends another riveting and revealing episode of Infinite Geek Talk, where we heard Keith's battle between a movie stinger and need for urinary relief. The bathroom triumphed. A rare moment of agreement that the DC TV lineup kinda blows. And of the newest hero in the Marvel Universe, Z Cucumber Man. And of course, the latest beverage craze yet to hit the mainstream. Infinite Geek Talk is brought to you by Infinite Heroes Comics, Cards, and Collectibles in Watertown, Connecticut, and Gorilla Valley Games. Infinite Geek Talk is a Rat's Nest production, recorded and engineered by Rich Johnson in the Rat's Nest Studio.